In the cold mists of the north, where the forests of birch and pine stretch endlessly toward the horizon, a legend begins. The year is 862. The scattered Slavic tribes of the Ruslands are divided. Torn by conflict and mistrust, each ruled by their own chieftains, they cry out for order, for a leader strong enough to unite them. And from the icy seas, a man arrives, a Varangian prince named Rurik. No one could know it then, but with his coming, a nation would be born that would shape the destiny of half the world. Rurik and his kin settle in Novgorod, founding a dynasty that will endure for centuries. His rule brings a fragile peace, the spark of unity among the tribes of the north. When Rurik dies, his successor, Oleg, moves the center of power southward, seizing the trade hub of Kiev. From that day forward, the realm becomes known as Kievan Rus, the first Russian state. Oleg opens the trade routes that link Scandinavia to Byzantium, a lifeline of gold, silk, and steel. The Rus become rich and feared, their long ships slicing down the Dnieper toward the glittering walls of Constantinople. Yet this is more than conquest. It is the beginning of identity. Under Prince Vladimir the Great, the Rus embraced Christianity in 988 AD from the domes of Kiev. Bells ring out across the steppe as thousands are baptized in the Dnieper's cold waters. Orthodoxy binds the people with faith, art, and written language. It gives them purpose and a shared soul. History in these lands is never still. In 1240, the Mongols descend from the east like a storm of fire. Cities burn, fields turn to ash, and for 2 centuries, the Golden Horde rules the Rus through terror and tribute. Princes kneel before the Khans of the steppe. Yet beneath the weight of oppression, something hardens in the Russian spirit. Endurance, faith, the will to survive. In the forests of the north, one city begins to rise above the others, Moscow. Founded in 1147 as a small fortress, it grows into a center of defiance. Its princes learn to play the Mongols against each other, growing strong behind walls of faith and stone. Ivan I Khalida, Ivan Moneybags, becomes the Khan's loyal tax collector, but secretly, he gathers power for himself. When the Mongol grip weakens, Moscow stands ready. In 1380, Prince Dmitry Donskoy meets the Mongols on the field of Kulikovo. Against overwhelming odds, the Russian banners hold. Steel clashes, arrows fall like rain, and when the dust settles, the Mongol army is broken. Though their yoke will linger, this victory becomes legend, the first breath of freedom. A century later, Ivan III, known as Ivan the Great, completes the work his ancestors began. He casts off the Mongol tribute, unites the Russian lands, and proclaims himself ruler of all Rus. Under his reign, Moscow becomes the third Rome heir to Byzantium, chosen by God to carry on the Orthodox faith. The double-headed eagle takes flight as Russia's symbol, yet power begets ambition. In 1547, a new ruler ascends the throne, Ivan IV, remembered by history as Ivan the Terrible. His childhood is haunted by betrayal and death, and when he takes power, his vengeance is absolute. He reforms the state, expands the borders, and crowns himself the first Tsar of all Russia. But madness seeps into his soul. He unleashes the Oprykanina, black-clad riders who terrorize the land, purging anyone he suspects of disloyalty. Villages burn, nobles die screaming, and the Tsar watches in silence. In his fury, Ivan murders his own son, leaving Russia airless and broken. When he dies, the realm collapses into chaos, the time of troubles. Famine grips the land. Impostors claim the throne. Foreign armies march on Moscow. It seems the dream of Russia may die before it truly begins. But once again, from despair comes strength. In 1613, a young nobleman is chosen to restore order. Mikhail Romanov. With his coronation, a new dynasty rises. The Romanovs will rule Russia for more than 300 years. Under them, the nation begins to heal. Trade returns, cities grow, and armies once again march under the double-headed eagle. Yet Russia remains isolated from the modern world, vast but backward, its people bound by tradition and fear. Then, in 1682, a boy of 10 becomes Tsar. His name is Peter. History will remember him as Peter the Great. From the beginning, Peter is different. He hungers for knowledge, for power, for the secrets of the West. He travels in disguise through Europe, studying shipbuilding, engineering, and modern warfare. When he returns, he brings with him a vision to drag Russia, kicking and screaming, into the modern age. He builds a navy from nothing, reorganizes the army, and crushes his enemies with ruthless precision. In the Great Northern War, he faces the might of Sweden's Charles XII, one of the greatest generals of his time. At Poltava in 1709, the Russian guns thunder, the Swedish lines crumble, and Peter's dream is born in blood and victory. He founds a new capital, St. Petersburg, carved from the swamps of the Baltic coast. Thousands die building it, but Peter calls it his window to the west. From here, he declares that Russia is no longer a land of medieval princes, it is an empire. The Tsar shaves the beards of his nobles, forces them into Western dress, and rewrites the laws of his realm. His reforms are brutal, his rule absolute, yet he leaves behind a transformed nation feared, respected, and determined to never again be left behind. As the icy winds of the north sweep over his new city, Peter the Great looks out over his empire, vast, unyielding, and eternal.
When Peter the Great dies in 1725, his empire stands vast, but uncertain. His reforms have torn the old order apart, leaving a country caught between two worlds. One foot in the modern age, the other still chained to feudal darkness. The struggle for power that follows is fierce and bloody, as noble factions fight to control the throne. But out of the chaos emerges a woman who will define an era. A foreign-born princess with ambition as boundless as Russia itself. Her name is Catherine. Born in the small German principality of Anhalt-Zerbst, she marries the unstable Peter III, grandson of Peter the Great. But when a husband's madness threatens the crown, Catherine moves swiftly. In 1762, she seizes power in a coup, becoming Empress of all Russia. History will call her Catherine the Great. She rules not with hesitation, but with vision. Under her reign, Russia becomes a beacon of enlightenment in the East. She invites philosophers, sponsors, art, science, and education. She dreams of turning her empire into a new Athens, a land of reason and grandeur. Yet she rules with an iron will. When rebellion flares in the vast steppes under Yemelyan Pugachev, Catherine crushes it without mercy. Her armies expand the empire further than ever before, into the Black Sea, Crimea, and the heart of Poland. Russian banners fly from the Baltic to the Caucasus. But as the empire grows, so too does its darkness. Millions of peasants remain serfs, bound to the land like slaves. Beneath the glittering palaces of St. Petersburg, misery festers. The cracks in Russia's golden facade begin to show. Catherine dies in 1796, leaving behind a colossal empire. Powerful, cultured, and feared, but fragile at its core. Her successors struggle to hold her vision together. Paul I, her son, rules with paranoia and cruelty until his own officers turn against him. In 1801, he is murdered in his palace. His son, Alexander I, inherits the crown, young and idealistic. The world he enters is changing. Revolution has swept across Europe, and one man threatens to dominate it all: Napoleon Bonaparte. When the French emperor invades Russia in 1812, he brings with him the might of half of Europe, minus 600,000 men marching toward Moscow. But Russia does not break. The Tsars' armies retreat, burning everything in their path. Villages, crops, entire cities, all consumed by fire. Napoleon reaches Moscow, but the city is empty, silent, burning. Winter comes, the temperature drops below freezing, and the once great grand army begins to die in the snow. Only a fraction returns. It is Russia's revenge, and Europe will never forget. Alexander emerges as the savior of Europe, riding into Paris in 1814 as conqueror. But glory fades quickly. At home, the ideals of liberty that defeated Napoleon begin to take root in the hearts of young Russian officers. They return from Europe with new dreams. Dreams of freedom, of a constitution, of an end to tyranny. In December 1825, they rise against the new Tsar, Nicholas I. The Decembrist revolt fails. The rebels are executed or sent to Siberia, but their dream will live on. Nicholas I tightens his grip. His empire becomes a machine of order and obedience, built on censorship, secret police, and absolute power. Russia expands into the Caucasus and Central Asia, but beneath the iron facade, unrest simmers. When the Crimean War erupts in 1853, the old empire meets the modern world and loses. The defeat shocks Russia to its core. The Tsar who follows, Alexander II, knows change is inevitable. In 1861, he signs the Emancipation Manifesto, freeing 20 million serfs. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Russian peasant stands free, but poor, landless, and betrayed. The dream of freedom quickly turns to disillusionment. Revolutionary whispers echo across the empire. Students, writers, and workers form secret societies, plotting to end the Tsarist order. In 1881, Alexander II is killed by a bomb in the streets of St. Petersburg. His blood stains the snow, a warning of what is to come. His successors retreat from reform, clinging to the past as the world races forward. Under Alexander III and Nicholas II, Russia becomes a land of contradictions. Palaces in poverty, splendor and suffering. The empire stretches from the Baltic to the Pacific, yet its people grow restless. In 1904, war with Japan erupts. The mighty Russian fleet sails halfway around the world, only to be destroyed at Tsushima. Humiliation breeds anger. The following year, 1905, peaceful protesters march to the Winter Palace, carrying icons and petitions. They seek justice, not revolution. The Tsars guards open fire. Blood stains the snow once more. Hundreds die in the massacre that will be remembered as Bloody Sunday. Across the empire, strikes and mutinies erupt. The Tsar grants a constitution and creates the Duma, a parliament, but his promises are hollow. The revolution subsides, but its spirit survives, waiting for its moment. That moment comes in 1914. Europe descends into war once again. Russia marches proudly into the Great War beside its allies. Millions of men sent to fight in the trenches of the Eastern Front. But the old empire is not ready for the storm. Its armies are ill-equipped, its people starving, its faith in the Tsar fading. As the war drags on, the cost becomes unbearable. In the cities, bread runs out. In the countryside, peasants seize the land. On the front lines, soldiers begin to question why they fight. In the shadows of power, whispers grow louder of revolution, of betrayal, of destiny. In the midst of the chaos stands one man who seems to hold the royal family in his grip, a wandering mystic named Rasputin. To some, he is a holy man. To others, a devil. His influence over Tsarina Alexandra becomes a national scandal, and when his power threatens to bring the empire down, conspirators strike. They poison him, shoot him, drown him. But the empire he haunts is already dying. In February 1917, protests erupt in Petrograd. Workers, soldiers, and peasants flood the streets. The army mutinies. The Duma turns against the Tsar. After 300 years, the Romanov Dynasty falls. Nicholas II abdicates the throne, ending an empire that began with Rurik more than 1,000 years before. The old order collapses, and from its ruins, a new and terrible force begins to rise. The Bolsheviks seize power in October, promising peace, land, and bread. Civil war follows. Brother fights brother. Cities burn, and the red flag rises over the Kremlin. The Tsar and his family are executed in a cellar in Yekaterinburg, their dynasty erased in blood and silence. From the mists of the north to the fire of revolution, the story of Russia is one of survival, of a people forged by hardship, reborn through struggle, and bound by destiny to endure. From Rurik's sword to the roar of the revolution, one truth remains. Russia does not fall. It transforms, reshapes, and rises again, vast, eternal, and unbroken.